Hey guys, we are going to be reading Leah and LeShawn Build a Letter by Rachel Lynette, illustrated by Steve Cox. Writing letters is fun. I really miss Tyler, my best friend. Tyler used to live on our street, but he moved away a few months ago. We have known each other since kindergarten. We used to do everything together. Then last week, my friend Leah had a great idea. She said we should write a letter to Tyler. I had never written a letter before, but Leah showed me how. It's easy and fun. Writing a letter is different than talking on the phone because you can think about exactly what you want to say. Here's the best part. Today, I got a letter from Tyler. It is really fun to get a letter in the mail. LeShawn, age 8. Excuse me. Leah climbed into the car. What a close game, she exclaimed. Sure was. I bet we would have won if Tyler had been here, replied LeShawn as he rolled down his window. He hit 4 home runs last season. He's a good pitcher, too, said Leah. As the car started to move, Leah looked out the window thoughtfully. I wonder if he plays on a baseball team in his new town. Hey, I have an idea. Why don't we write him a letter? Maybe he will write back and tell us about his life in Oregon, said Leah excitedly. Do you have his address? Asked LeShawn. I have it, Leah's mom, Mrs. Dunway, chimed in from the front of the car. I have some stationery you can use too. So stationery is like fancy paper that you would write a letter on. Stationery? What's that? Asked LeShawn. Stationery is paper that people use to write letters, replied Leah. Can't we just use notebook paper? Asked LeShawn. You can, but stationery makes the letter more special. You can see in the picture there, Mrs. Dunway is showing them how much nicer the stationery looks than just using a regular piece of notebook paper. When Leah and LeShawn got back to Leah's house, they sat down at the dining room table. Mrs. Dunway gave them light yellow stationery with smiley faces in the corners. There were matching envelopes too. I see what you mean about how stationery makes the letter more special, said LeShawn. So what do we do first? Here's a notebook, said Mrs. Dunway. Why don't you start by thinking about what you want to say in your letter? Then you can write it down. It will help you organize your thoughts before you use the stationery. I want to tell him all kinds of things, said LeShawn excitedly. A lot has happened since he moved. There was the science fair, playing baseball, the field trip to the zoo. Oh, and Andrew broke his leg. And that's a lot for one letter, exclaimed Leah. Let's write everything down and then decide what the most important things are. So they wrote all of that on the paper. They were brainstorming ideas. Science fair, baseball game, new kid in our class, field trip to the zoo, Andrew broke his leg, went to the movies, LeShawn's new puppy, Leah's birthday party, school play, Valentine's Day party, got a new video game. Wow, those are a lot of things to write about. Okay, you see they're writing down their ideas, and LeShawn is thinking about the puppy that he wants to write about, and Leah is thinking about how they went to the zoo. Okay, now we have a pretty good list, said Leah. Letters can be as long or short as you want. Since you're new to letter writing, let's pick 3 important things to write about. Wow, some of this happened a long time ago, like the Valentine's Day party and the school play, said LeShawn. Leah crossed those ideas off the list. And Tyler might not be that interested in some of these things, added Leah. We could cross off the movies, the video game, and the new kid in class. I don't want to write about the baseball game because we lost. Let's write about the zoo, your birthday party, and my new puppy, decided LeShawn. So now I know what I want to write about, said LeShawn. What do we do next? Here, look at this letter I wrote to my grandma. I was going to mail it later. Leah pulled an envelope out of her pocket, took out the letter, and unfolded it carefully. My mom helped me write it, Leah continued. She showed me how a letter has 5 parts. There is the heading at the top of the letter, the greeting, the body of the letter, the closing, and the signature. So her letter says, Dear Grandma, thanks for your last letter. I was glad to hear that you and Grandpa planted flowers in the front yard. It will be fun to see them when we come to visit in July. My project won second place at our school science fair. Dad helped me to make a circuit with batteries and bulbs. I explained all about how electricity works. Please give Grandpa a hug for me and write back soon. Love, Leah. Okay, so LeShawn is working on his letter to Tyler. You can see he added the heading at the top. That's the address where it looks like their return address. Dear Tyler. So let's see what else he's going to put in his letter. So we start with the heading at the top and on the right of the page, asked LeShawn. Yes, the heading includes your address and the date, answered Leah. LeShawn wrote 52522 Elm Street, Park Ridge, Illinois, May 18th, 2012. Oh, now I see why the heading is important. It lets Tyler know our address so he can write us back, said LeShawn. It looks like the greeting is next. LeShawn started a new line and wrote, Dear Tyler. Don't forget the comma, said Leah. The greeting always ends with a comma. LeShawn added the comma. Now what? Now we write the body of the letter. The body is everything you want to say to Tyler. Mrs. Dunway walked into the dining room with a tray of carrot sticks with vegetable dip and 2 glasses of milk. You could try an introduction, she added. That's where you tell the other person why you're writing the letter. That makes sense, said LeShawn, starting to write. How about this? LeShawn showed Leah and Mrs. Dunway the letter. Dear Tyler, today Leah and I were remembering how much fun we had last year when we were all on the same baseball team. We decided to write you a letter. Sorry, guys. A letter to tell you what has been happening since you moved. There's Mrs. Dunway with the snacks. They have their list of ideas right here on the notepad, and they're working on writing their letters. You two reminded me that there are some letters that I need to write too, said Mrs. Dunway. Really? Asked LeShawn. Do you have a friend who moved away? Not exactly, said Mrs. Dunway. Letters are helpful for many reasons. I need to write a thank you letter to my aunt for a gift that she sent me. I'd also like to write the mayor a letter asking the city to put a stop sign on the corner at the end of our block. You can write a letter to the mayor? Wow, said LeShawn. Sure, you can write a letter to just about anyone if you have their address. An author, an athlete, even the president. I like writing to authors because they almost always write back, said Leah, but we need to finish our letter to Tyler first. Leah and LeShawn worked together to write about their class field trip to the zoo. They started writing about Leah's birthday next. Leah picked up the page and read what they had written. I think we need to fix something. We talked about the field trip to the zoo, and then we started talking about my birthday party. Since my birthday is a new subject, we need a new paragraph. LeShawn erased the last sentence he had written and rewrote it in a new paragraph. By the time they had written about Leah's birthday party and LeShawn's new puppy, the carrot sticks were gone. We're almost done now, right? Said LeShawn as he put the period after the last sentence. Almost, replied Leah, but we still need a conclusion. That way it doesn't end suddenly. How about, we really miss you. Please write back soon and tell us all about your life in Oregon. Perfect, said LeShawn. Now we need the closing and the signature, right? Right. Okay, but I don't want to sign it love like you did with your grandma. Can we write from instead? We could, said Leah, but another closing might sound better. I use sincerely when I write to an author, but that doesn't sound quite right. What about your friends? Suggested LeShawn. Good idea, said Leah. Remember that the closing and the signature go on the right side of the paper, like the heading. Okay, so they're finishing up their letters here. All the snacks are gone. LeShawn wrote the closing. This time he remembered the comma at the end. They both signed the letter. That was fun, said LeShawn as he read over the letter. All right, let's see what they added to their letter. Dear Tyler, today Leah and I were remembering how much fun we had last year when we were all on the same baseball team. We decided to write you a letter to tell you what has been happening since you moved. Last week, our class took a field trip to the zoo. I liked the monkeys the best. Leah liked the giraffes. Have you gone on any field trips with your new class? Leah's birthday party was really fun too. She had a bowling party. I got 2 strikes. The cake was in the shape of a bowling pin and it was chocolate. Yum. I finally got a puppy. We named him Cody. How does Daisy like your new neighborhood? I bet if you still lived here, Cody and Daisy would be good friends. We really miss you. Please write back soon and tell us all about your life in Oregon. Your friends, LeShawn and Leah. Mrs. Dunway gave them a stamp for the envelope. Leah carefully wrote Tyler's name and address on the front of the envelope. Then she wrote LeShawn's address on the upper left-hand corner of the envelope. This is called the return address, she told LeShawn. That way, if your letter doesn't get to where it's supposed to go, the post office can send it back to you. He put the stamp in the upper right-hand corner. Let's mail it right now. See, they're putting the stamp on the letter right there. Okay, it says, you can write a letter too. Who do you want to write your letter to? You can write to someone you know, like a friend or a relative, or you can write to someone you have never met, like an author, a movie star, or an athlete. A letter has 5 parts: the heading, the greeting, the body, the closing, and the signature. It's a good idea to write down some ideas about what you want to say before you write the body of your letter. Then pick a few favorites to write about. If you are writing to a friend or a relative, you might want to write about what is going on in your life. If you are writing to someone you do not know, you will want to start your letter by telling the person why you are writing. You may also want to ask the person some questions. Try writing a letter to someone famous. What do you want to tell that person? What do you want to ask? Remember to use a new paragraph when you change subjects. Here is a letter that Leah wrote to one of her favorite authors. Read her letter and then write a letter to someone that you admire. Okay, so this is the letter that Leah wrote to an author. So we have the heading up there, that's Leah's address and the date. It says, Dear Miss Robbins, I am writing to tell you how much I enjoyed reading Lemonade Summer. It is one of my favorite books and I have told all of my friends to read it. My favorite part of Lemonade Summer was when Lizzie woke up on the second morning to find that there were already hundreds of people in line at her lemonade stand. I thought it was really funny when she ran outside while she was still in her pajamas. I would like to be an author too when I grow up, but sometimes I have trouble thinking of good ideas for a story. How do you get the ideas for your books? How did you get the idea for Lemonade Summer? Thank you for reading my letter and for writing such wonderful books. Sincerely, Leah Dunway. All right, we're going to go over the words in the glossary. Body is the message of the letter. Closing, a word or phrase, followed by a comma to end the letter. Greeting, the opening, followed by a comma. Heading, your address and the date at the top of the letter. Signature, your name signed under the closing. And stationery, special paper used for writing letters. I hope you guys like that. I hope it motivated you to write a letter to somebody.